Let's go. Game time. The standard is the standard. That's our motto. That's our creed.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Better Baby Daddy podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, John Lashman.
I'm your other co-host, Kelly Burgess.
And today, B, we're going to talk about some things that are very near and dear to our hearts. Yeah. Some things that, we've experienced, are experiencing, and will continue to experience in life. Today's episode is titled, Own Your Legacy, How Your Kids Will Describe You Tomorrow.
Wow.
And for some of us, how they're describing us right now in this moment. Yeah.
Right today.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
When I think of that concept, I feel this immense responsibility as a man and as a father to constantly put myself in a position and provide myself with the opportunities to be successful as a dad and as a father. And that means having difficult conversations with my little ones when necessary. It means having a standard that they see me constantly working towards. How I interact with them, how I interact with the people around me. It's everything, man. Everything.
Yeah. I mean, and because we've been doing this work for, going on 2 years, and in terms of putting things on tape about how we've been reflective as dads, how we've been intentional as dads, and then many, many years before we started taping things, we have approached fatherhood with an idea that, hey, we know we were. We know the principles that need to be put in place to be better, and we want to be better. And it's put us in a place where we're thinking about, how does what I do today impact my kids today, tomorrow, 10, 20, 30 years down the road? It's on our mind. And I love what you said, is that we're living it now in real time. We're getting that feedback in real time because we're in deep with our kids. And if you're out there and, man, you're on the beginning of this journey of like split up, first of all, I want you to know is hope. There's a lot of hope, but you are building a story that your kids are going to tell about you. And so I thought that as we were talking, we would give a couple of personal, unfiltered stories about stories that got back to us. Man, maybe, hey, you never thought that this would be the story being told about you. And maybe stories that our fathers, legacies that our fathers left or didn't leave, or we wish they had left, we'll touch on those. And then we're going to move through some other stuff. But this is a really near and dear subject to us. We could spend probably 3 or 4 episodes on this because we've lived it as sons, and now we're trying to live it out and be intentional about it as dads. So first thing I wanted to just touch on is, like, as we were in pre-show, just thinking about, well, what was the legacy? What would I say about my mom? And what was the legacy you left? I just jotted down a couple quick notes just to kind of keep my stuff focused. My dad was there, and he was fair, and he was funny. When I needed my dad, after 17, we didn't live together. I mean, briefly, I lived in his apartment at the end of high school, beginning of college. But then after that, I moved out. And then when my parents split up after 17 years of marriage, he moved to a 1-bedroom apartment, and he stayed there until he moved to senior care 45 years later.
Wow.
Almost 50 years later.
Wow.
And so he got locked into like a certain orbit that was just hard for him to get out of. I didn't really think about it too much until I had to, move all of his stuff, from the apartment, and it was obviously he couldn't live by himself anymore. Discovered he was a hoarder, and there was, just other things that get revealed with your parents when you start really digging into their life as an adult. But the legacy he left with me, and the thing I take to my parenting is, hey, man, be there, be even-handed. My dad was very, very calm, almost to a fault, and he was very funny, like. Not, life of the party funny, but his insights are really, really funny. So I can say, man, that's a legacy that ran down, and it's something that my kids picked up from their grandfather. The legacy I wish he had is this work that we're in now. Hey, man, at 35 or at 40, Kelly, I made some tragic decisions, and I can see how it impacted you and your brother. And so moving forward, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. yeah, I wish he had been able to bring that to the table, but man, I mean, you can only do what you can do. The things that I'm realizing now as a 60-year-old is that your kids have constructed a story about you already. That story is being, and it's multifaceted, right? And the story is being circulated amongst their friend group and their significant relationships. And there's one incident that I wanted to just talk about real quickly. It came with one of my sons. And, you know, we're on this big J. Cole head because I just discovered that J. Cole was the unlock for them, right? Like, God gave me a second chance to unlock and kind of get on this lane of my kids. I missed the whole video game lane, right? So now it's like, I'm going to give you another shot. J. Cole lyrics, no, unlock. So there was, you know, several times where, you know, these, you know, J. Cole just dropped an album, and so several times the lyrics came up. But as I was doing my research as a dad, saying, okay, my boys are into this, I got to get into these lyrics. But there was a song that came up that talked about, it was J. Cole rapping about, hey, you just gotten a girl pregnant. Mm-hmm. And it was not an ideal situation. Mm-hmm. And the girl was hot. And J. Cole wanted her, I guess the rapper, I don't know if he's talking about himself or somebody else, but say, hey, you know, I think she's getting an abortion. We're not in a position to be taking care of this baby, blah, blah, blah. And different things came up that reminded me of, you know, some particular sons. And we were able to talk about that. You know, hey, man, when I listened to this, man, I was thinking of you, Dad. I know you was thinking about me when you heard that. And then there was another part where J. Cole, the woman in the rap, is talking about, hey, your dad was X, Y, and Z, and you said you would never be like that. And I texted my son, I said, I know this I sent him a screenshot of the lyrics, and I said, I know this conversation is coming with your, you know, one of your BMs. And he said, yeah, Dad, we covered that ground pretty thoroughly. Mm. And it's like we talked about last episode, you never know that, man, I do something in 1998, mm-hmm. and that chicken is going to come home to roost in 2025. And so that's part of the legacy. So when we talk about being intentional, man, we're constantly building that story. And sometimes you get a reveal of what the story actually is, and it's an eye-opener. Mm. You know, I'm 25 years down the road, it doesn't sting as much. But the fact that my son even has to have that conversation with one of his, you know, with one of his partners is like, yo.
I guess that it becomes, right, if I'm doing the work prior to my children having that conversation with a friend or a family member or a significant other, how they deliver that message is entirely different.
Yeah.
Because if I'd done the pre-work, even though I've done things that I shouldn't have done in life.
You've done dirt.
I've done the dirt.
Now you're doing the pre-work.
What if I'm doing the pre-work after that and talking to my children about the dirt that I've done?
Yeah.
The deliverance of their message to their significant other might be like, listen, my dad did some things that he took accountability for, mm-hmm. and he's grown as a man, and he's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Because of those lessons that he learned in life.
Yeah.
If I've done the pre-work. Yeah. If I haven't done the pre-work, you know, my dad was up.
He was out.
He did some dirty things with my mother.
Stuff. I don't know what he did. Yeah. I mean, I love that. And it's just that small difference allows your children to be able to insert a but in the story.
Yes.
My dad did this, but man, he's here. Mm-hmm. My dad did this, but, and because sometimes it's we'll get into it. It's really complicated for the kids. You know, we you know, as dads can really complicate our kids' storytelling ability.
Yeah.
And so it might mean my dad did this and he's still in my life. But he walked that thing back and owned it with my mom. They're great friends. But the point is that there are the story your kids tell to their friends, to themselves about you is not going to go through this sophisticated filter of adulthood like us. Because they experienced the story, they were a recipient of the story as opposed to a participant in the story. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing we want to impress upon you guys now. Sometimes we've all been there where you've made a decision and you're just thinking you can't think past the end of your joint. And you just make the decision. But man, the ramifications of that joint are immense, you know?
And it's only the story they tell. Right. If you're not out in front of that, taking ownership of that story, it's the story that other people tell your children.
Yes.
So if you're not going to own it and get in the nitty gritty and have those conversations,
Yeah.
somebody else is.
Yes, they are.
And that somebody else isn't going to tell it like you're going to tell it.
They're not. They're not, because they're just getting a slice. They just know, hey, your child came from a broken house.
Mm-hmm.
You broke it,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the story.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you just a slimy dude.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be, the people hearing that are going to be thrust back to the initial stages of it. Like, how could he leave 5 kids? Like, what kind of dude would do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand the trench work you've done to get back to the point where your kids are even willing to sit down and have a breakfast with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so be intentional about building that story in a positive way. Avoidance, as we talked about, is building the story either way. And avoidance is constructing another story that's going to be hard for you to come back from.
Absolutely.
Right? One thing I noticed is that, and one thing in our work, the second point, and is that, man, we notice these patterns in ourselves. Sometimes I think it's a watershed moment for us as men. It's like, why am I doing this thing over and over? I had a similar conversation with a couple of my boys. Dad, I feel like I'm stuck in this pattern.
Mm.
And we in our family, we talk about generational curses, and sometimes it's just generational stupidity. It's you just do a stupid thing, you don't correct the stupid thing, and so the pattern is just we just do stupid things and just kind of take the whooping for it. And
it's funny you say that, like that slight difference between a curse and stupidity, right? I was doing something last night, and the concept of generational curses came up, and I started really thinking about it, and I was like, I don't like that, because the generational curse thing is like, oh, you're just cursed. There's no ownership in a curse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there isn't. It easily could be, you just throw your hands out there, all birds are meant that way.
That's it. That's what happens, right?
And we do have a type, and we do have a way of moving, but it doesn't mean you're locked into that.
Yeah.
You can choose to move differently. Like, you can choose to engage with life and engage with females differently. So, but there are, because we're human beings, and we say all the time, more is caught than taught. Mm-hmm. Your children are catching things from you. What are they going to catch? Are they going to catch just complete irresponsibility and just, lack of regard for these kids I produce, for the women that I interact with? Or are they going to catch, hey, I'm able to course correct quickly before I completely destroy the most important things in my life? And I'm able to own things humbly and then move to the standard. Are they going to catch that? And so one thing that's really been, as we were talking a couple, days ago before pre-show, man, it's important, gentlemen, that you inform yourself on how did you get to this spot. And at 60 years old, product of 2 divorces, one thing I'm always wondering is like, what was the impact on me as a child of divorce that I'm not even aware of that spilled into my 2 marriages? And then what's the impact on my kids that I'm not even aware of that I can still do something about because I got the strength and, hopefully the time and the inclination to do it. And I would highly recommend this book here by Judith Wallerstein, Second Chances, because she breaks it down, just the research on working with families who've been that. 15 years ago, talking with the family and the little kids about, hey, at the initial point of divorce, what was going on? What were the feelings? What were the kids thinking? Then following up 15, 20 years later and saying, hey, where's everybody now? Were you able to rebuild your life? Why? And what she found was, man, there's just some stark differences on the legacies that are left. Everybody went through the same thing, breakups. But the story these kids tell and the story the parents tell is very, very different. Pattern, she said that, hey, there's 2 main patterns that good parents do to help their kids navigate breakups. It's psychological work you got to do as an adult, and the shepherding of your children you got to do once that breakup happens. And there's 5 or 6 things in each. We don't have time to get into each of them, but I would say this, like, I'm going to just read this real quickly. So if you're thinking about the patterns you want to leave for your kids, here's a good framework. She says the key aspect of every child's lives can be made easier by parents' attitudes at the time of the crisis of the breakup, as well as later. Parent support is critical in preparing children for, she's speaking in terms of divorce, we'll just say split-ups, in preparing children for divorce and in seeing them through the turmoil surrounding it. The children of divorce are dependent on adults' help to understand what is happening in the family, master the news, the complex new relationships during the post-divorce years, and to mourn the losses associated with the split up. To master anxiety, to overcome guilt, and to undertake all the psychological tasks that divorce entails.
Whew, that is so heavy. Like, it just sounds like words, but it's so heavy. It's essentially, you have two things on the stove and they're both on the verge of burning.
Yep.
It's your own mental, emotional well-being and your
Yep.
children's own mental, emotional well-being. And they're both 2 seconds for burning. How are we going to take care of both pots?
And I don't think, I know I wasn't thinking about that. At the forefront of my first divorce. I was not thinking, I didn't visualize, there's this pot boiling over between me and the wife. But there's 5 other little pots on burners. And just that there, gentlemen, if you can just sense that, obviously there's heat between you and the lady. For every child, that's a little pot on the stove too. You got to understand that. They're not just kind of like something off there. So what patterns do we want are just the patterns of recognizing that there's a lot of people involved and speaking to each of them and their needs, as well as your own, along the way. I'm gonna leave this. Like I said, we could take all day. So
Absolutely.
the pattern I've tried to, now that I'm a lot more conscious dad, is I've tried to be like you would want to be if you were in the household, available, so consistent, and loving, and that looks different in different times. Sometimes loving is, no, we're not going to do that. No, that's not the standard. Have you lost your freaking mind? Like, that's loving, right?
Man.
How do we get here again, right? And then sometimes loving is, I'm not a cuddly guy, but I got a daughter who is. And I'm going to get on the floor and we're going to just wrestle, or, I'm going to hold her and we're going to watch a movie because that speaks her language. Or I got a son that's like, hey, Dad, let's go run a 5K because that's his language. It's loving them in a way that they need to be loved and understanding that they might need so much more because they're also managing this breakup. And I know I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking, how am I going to live on $2 a paycheck? I can't believe this B did this to me when I did the thing to me. So that's what Judah Wallerstein talks. Your capacity to be able to be there for your kids in that way adds to the story of, man, my dad wasn't there, because most men are not going to have the capacity to do that unless they really do the work.
And the only way you really turn down the heat for your children's burners is turning down your own heat. And turning down the heat between you and your BM. Because there's no way we can allow all 7 or 3 or 4 or 5, how many burners you got going to continue at that heat.
You cannot. You'll burn a house down. And then many of us have been in situations where we've just let things go, and now nothing cooked on the stove. Everything is ruined.
You caught the house on fire.
You caught the house on fire. And so the pattern, when we talk about legacy, you're leaving it every day. I'll just leave it with this. You're leaving it every day. And the pattern of, hey, is he available? Not available. Is he calm and measured and done the work? Or is he unpredictable and explosive? Is he have a measure of faithfulness to what he said he was going to do? Or is he completely unreliable? You're building those 2 stories. One of the 2. So we just, just want you to give that some thought. We're definitely going to cycle back to this and give you guys some resources, because it's just, it's deep work. Like you said last taping, it's complicated work, but we don't want it to be chaotic for you. But we don't want to shortchange how important it is to be thinking forward about your life.
Absolutely. But there was a line or a little story that you pulled from the book when we were talking over the phone, and I just felt the immense, I don't know what it is, the immense emotional awakening in that moment when you read that little story to me about that daughter laying on her deathbed. Could you speak to that before we move forward a little bit?
Absolutely. So when we talk about legacy and the things that are hidden in your kids, those stories that are inside that you might not ever get. So Judith Wilderstein talks about the complex emotions that children have post breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a story of a 21-year-old girl who was dying from melanoma. And she was talking to her mom, and she was close to dying. She's on her deathbed, and she's talking to her mom, and she says, "Tell Dad that I'm still angry with him." And then later in the story, Judith Wilderstein says that the daughter and the father had repaired their relationship over time. It was a good relationship, but the inner story to her is, "I'm still furious with you." And then the young lady dies and never lets the dad know. The mom doesn't tell the dad because she said it would break the dad's heart. But it's those that hit me so hard. It's like, the question I had is, what kind of stories like that are within my kids now? Yeah, is what is in them that they've had to eat, and for whatever reason, they didn't want to tell me. They couldn't tell me, but that's in them so strong that they would take it to their death. Yo. So I was one of those points I just had to put the book down because it alters your view of how what you do to your kids impacts them. That it's that deep, and so that's why we're talking about. I'm glad you reminded me about that. And it just really makes you ponder. And then the hope is, man, like we say, what's the next best dad move I can make to build into the legacy that I want?
And then can you repeat that move day in and day out? Yeah. That's it. The next best dad move. Yeah. And is it repeatable? Yeah. And hope is, I know we've been, it's been kind of heavy, right? But the hope is that, and you get these little snippets of hope when you hear your kid, once your kids have kids and they start echoing the positive legacy story to your kids. That's it. To your grandkids. Like, you've made inroads when that thing starts getting down to the third generation. And it's not, oh, granddaddy, Kelly was a slick hoe. It's no. K-pop is K-pop. Loves reading stories with you, bought you some books. Yeah. It's a different story. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for the reminder of that, man. Yeah, no problem. And so our third point, we're going to transition a little bit, is about that consistency as the silent teacher of our legacy. So what are you consistently doing, or what are you consistently doing? Yeah. And that is going to be the silent teacher of your legacy. We can spend, as men, it's very easy to have these moments with our children, whether you have them every weekend, every other weekend, or you have them full time, to have these conversations where, like, hey, this is what we do in our family. This is how we operate. So you're, scolding a little bit, but maybe you're also empowering. It's those type of conversations we have. And you might have that every weekend, and that's the consistent legacy building thing, right? Right. But if you're having that once every 3 years, that's not consistency. So what type of consistency are you building into your children? And it's also this consistent things that we do that they are aware of that we don't say. Right? So what am I doing on a day-to-day basis that my child sees me doing? And that becomes my legacy in their eyes. No matter what I say to them, it becomes a legacy in their eyes. Yeah. So my children, my goal is to leave a legacy that they see, not what I'm telling them, right, but what they see from my consistent behaviors and patterns is like, yo, Dad is going to be fit. Dad is going to be 100% fit. Right. Dad has certain standards when it comes to life in general. Right. Dad's going to work hard and work smart. Right. But Dad's also going to be there for me. Yeah. I tell my daughter all the time, my little one, because of the things that she's experienced, and I'm not going to dive into that. Yeah. She's felt a lot of inconsistency in life. Yeah. Right. And she has this almost odd attachment thing. No, not attachment, but she has this, and it's not odd, it's not the correct term either, but she has this thing where she doesn't like people leaving her because of things that have transpired. And it's very obvious in some of her behaviors. When she was much littler, she didn't even want the bathroom door closed. Right? She had to have the bathroom door open just so she could see that people weren't leaving. Right? So I tell her all the time, Daddy's always going to be there. Right. I started saying Daddy's always going to be there, but I understood that there would be times, or I came to the realization, there's times when maybe I wouldn't. Right. So I always said, Daddy will do his best to always be there when you need him. And sometimes I'll be there right here with you, and sometimes it'll be on the phone, sometimes it'll be virtually, but I'm going to do my best to always be there with you. But that's that consistency that she needs to get over that little hurdle she has in life.
Yeah, in the reading we've done and just by discovery, I don't think there's anything that's as important as you just showing up and being present. Because think about what they lost when they lose you on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
You're not there, and there's this insecurity that's inserted into their mind of, are they coming back? Is he okay? Am I okay just being left with mom because she's got all these emotions and I got to deal with that? So there's that uncertainty that comes up when that pattern of you not being able to consistency is interrupted, right?
Yeah, I was going to say my oldest, just this previous week. So my youngest got sick this weekend, and me and my first BM, we have this great dynamic, great working relationship where we're able to communicate, hey, you know, this week is not going to be great. Can we switch weekends? Because my youngest is sick. I don't want my oldest to come over and get sick as well. So, we're able to do that. And I told my oldest, I was like, hey, daddy's not coming this weekend to pick you up. Your sissy's sick. So we need to, me and your mother spoke, and I'm going to get you next weekend. She's like, all right, cool, dad, no problem. A couple of days later, she's like, why aren't you coming to get me again? And she knows. Yeah. But I had to reiterate that because I had broke a consistent pattern. Yeah. Yeah. And she needed to talk about that. Yeah. So we're going to have that conversation when I go pick her up this Friday and that hour drive back about, hey, it had nothing to do with you, baby. Yeah. Yeah. It's nothing to do with you. Yeah. I was protecting you in a sense, right? Yeah. I didn't want you to get sick. Right. But she felt it. And she said, hey, Dad, we're going to talk about this in her own 10-year-old way. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing that you're able to, like, just that right there, that she felt, hey, I could cycle back a couple days later. This is on my mind. You know, in your first BM have a pattern of working through things and presenting things to the kids in a way that none of y'all looks less than. So she's not like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with your dad. He should have come and got you, She's gassing you up to your daughter, right? To the point where, hey, I can come back, Dad, and ask that. It's a beautiful thing, but she is so used to, a pop comes and gets me at whatever time on Friday, and then, the weekend's going to roll how it rolls. We lose sight of that when we're in the midst of our own stuff. Yeah. Trying to figure things out, trying to uncomplicate things, that is going on with the kids. That story is being built. Just because you don't hear about it from them or you hear about it much later doesn't mean it's not being built. So consistency it's the teacher. And it's nothing that you say. Well, it is. There are things that you say, right? Because your children will, when they get older, you always used to say this. You always used to say that. You said this. But so much more, it's what you do. Yeah. And if you can be consistent in what you do, the positive things that you can do, that is going to go the extra mile in so many situations when you're not there with your children. Right. Or even when you are there with your children. Yeah. Right?
It's very, very important. So find, we talked a couple episodes ago about, structure and habits. Find things that work, that you can hit your mark 10 out of 10 times or 9.5 out of 10 times. And that is what you'll be known for. Yeah. My dad always did this, and there's this positive thing.
And that's your legacy right there. That's it.
That is.
And that is a beautiful transition to our third point, which is those compound choices we make in life. Look, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably made some decisions and choices that are not the best. If you're listening to this podcast, you've experienced some decisions and choices that were made around you that probably weren't the best. Yeah. I know I can take ownership of a lot of decisions and choices that I made that put me in a position where I'm even able to speak about these things, good and bad. Yeah. And I can't point, when I truly dive into the reflection, I can't necessarily point to, it was this exact decision in this moment. Yeah, there was this pivot point that had occurred. There was a decision that created this massive pivot. but it was the lead up to those things, that major pivot point. It was the lead up to, so it was all these micro decisions that I made along the way that caused this, what looks like this massive decision to occur.
Right.
And then I was like,
Yeah.
the edge.
Yep.
If I can put it into an analogy, you know, you're walking up the side of the mountain and each step you make is a choice towards that top of the mountain. And then you get to the top of the mountain and you're like, yo, there's no more steps, but I'm going to go anyhow. And you step off the cliff. It wasn't that last step. It was every step you made that got you to that point. And that's what we don't realize a lot of times as men, that we're building this pattern through our consistent choices. So right now, I'm building patterns, some that I'm aware of and some that I'm not aware of, right? There's unconscious things that occur for us as well. Can I stop and take time during the day, during the week, at some moment and just reflect, all right, what patterns am I building? Are they beneficial to my life? Are they beneficial to my children's lives? Because a lot of times it's just the recognition of those patterns and then putting a plan in place to break those patterns.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, then you can alter the path. All right, wait a second. I'm walking up this mountain right here, but it's a dead end.
You can see it's a dead end.
And you can see that. You're like, oh, let me reevaluate some of the decisions I'm making on a daily basis and make a new plan.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's not your goals. It's the plan. So if that plan is not going to work for you, you need to make certain adjustments.
Yeah.
You can be off, right? Darren Hardy speaks specifically in The Compound Effect about, you know, a flight that takes off from LA, and we spoke about this before, a flight that takes off from LA and is headed to New York. Two planes are taking off from LA and they're headed to New York. The one plane is off by 1 degree. The other plane is right on course. That 1 degree completed over 3,000 miles does not put you in New York City. It puts you in Toronto.
Yeah.
Look, Toronto's cool, it's nice,
Right.
but you wanted to be in New York City. That's what, I don't know, how far that way? 4 or 5 hours away, 6 hours away?
It's a ways.
So it's those small decisions that you're repeating over and over again that you're either consciously doing or unconsciously doing that are leading you down a path that you don't want to travel or you're unaware of that you're traveling. Yeah. So can you make better decisions? Can you stop, reflect, and say, oh, this is where I am. These are the decisions that I'm making. These are the patterns that I'm building. This is the legacy that I'm leaving for my children. Yeah. This is what they're seeing in me. Yeah. And can I change course? Yeah.
I love that, man. Yeah. And it reminds me, the Darren Hardy example reminds me of what Stephen Covey said, a little different analogy is that the 1 degree off is similar to Stephen Covey saying you got the ladder leaning against the wrong wall. And just knowing where you want to climb or knowing where you want to end up is half the battle. When I'm in these tense conversations with my sons about, hey, this inflection point in your life is always, let's fast forward 50 years and you're on the porch and you're 75 years old and you're a granddad. And what does that picture look like? And that helps you with this small, next step up the mountain, hopefully. We'll see, right? But I love that. It's just recognizing that there's no small decisions. They're small in the moment, but they're big over time.
Yes.
And then our man James Clear says, hey, say you made a series of bad decisions. You could take, or you have a bad pattern or bad habit. You could take 5 minutes to disrupt that bad habit by reflecting and saying, is this going to get me what I want? Is it going to get my kids what I want? And let's make a different decision.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful quotes from The Compound Effect that powerful to me is that the quote itself is, the graduation, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but the graduation from childhood to adulthood requires accountability of decisions we make. So what decisions have I made? And if we alter that a little bit for our podcast, you are still a boy if you're not taking accountability for the decisions that you are making. Yeah. You have not yet become a man until you start taking accountability for the decisions you make. Yeah. I can be a little extreme when it comes to accountability because I feel it's empowering. The more accountability I take in my life, the more power I feel in regards to who I am and the type of man or father I am. When I was going through it with the mother of my second child, we had gotten to this argument, but I was leaving to go to a different city, and it delayed the process by 3 or 4 hours. So now I'm driving in the dark in the winter through these mountains, and it's icy roads, and I crash on this icy road and total my car. And I'm like, this is on her. This is her fault. If I wouldn't have gotten an argument with her, it wouldn't have happened. I'd be there already. And I was going there for the purpose of attending one of my good friends' father's funeral. Right? So I had missed everything. It just wasn't going to happen anymore at that point. And I was blaming her. And then I can remember, my sister was with me too. And I can remember her being in the back of the ambulance. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt. And I'm standing outside the ambulance and I'm like, just mad about the entire situation and more mad at her. And then for some reason, you know, it's like 11 p.m., it's 30 degrees outside in the mountains. And I said, and it just hit me. I was like, why are you mad at her? This is on you, man. These were all your decisions that led to this point. No one forced you on this journey to make any of these decisions. These were all your decisions. Your decision to be with her. Right? Your decision to have a child with her. And I mean have a child with her in regards to like, ain't no one forced me to have sex with her. Your decision to stay with her when things got rocky and you knew that it wasn't working. Your decision to engage in that argument that night before you left. Your decision to still leave. Your decision to drive when you were emotionally unregulated and probably not paying attention that well, when your mind is drifting and the conditions are not good. That was all on you, man. And that right there, I was like, wow. Yeah, that was it, man.
And you know, and that's when you're a man, you know. In Game of Thrones quotes we throw out, you know, you got to kill the boy to let the man come forward. And you kill the boy by saying, this is on me. I'll own it. And I'm going to play the cards that I've been dealt and play smarter. You know, that's it. So
I think that's a good transition right there to our fifth point. And I know we're running a little short on time here, but you have to be the father that your kids do not need to recover from, but the father that they recover because. Man.
That's it.
If you're listening, like I've already said earlier, you're probably done some things that your children do need to recover from. Or you've been parts of situations where your children need to recover from. Can you work on that right now with your children in this moment? Can you reach out to them and be like, hey, listen, there's some things that I did, some things that well, that's not extreme accountability. There's some things that I did while I was with your mother, and I can't speak to the things that she did, but I can speak to the things that I did. And can you work through that with them? Can you give them the skills or begin teaching them the skills to be like, hey, I want to take accountability for this. I'm going to own these things. And in so doing, they're able to start that recovery process themselves because you're having those conversations with them. If you're not having those conversations with them, and we talked about this yesterday very briefly, if you're not having those conversations with them, if you're not building that type of relationship with them as a man, something or someone else will. And if they're young ladies, if you start seeing some patterns in your young ladies because you're not there enough, and I know some of us are in some extreme situations that don't allow us to be there because of certain things that are occurring, it's time to think differently about your approach so you can do your best to be there. And it's time to work tirelessly in an attempt to do that. I know some of you are. I know that. I know what it's like to go weeks without seeing someone that you love and you cherish and you help bring into this world. But you, as men and fathers, we have to do our best to be there in those moments that they need us the most because someone else will or something else will. And if you have young boys and you're not there, the ramifications of that as well.
Yeah, it shows up differently.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about when we were talking about the young ladies, our absence creates a void. Our not owning the hurt that we caused because of the disruption of their life leaves a void, and leaves a lot of pain. And in that void, they're going to pour things into that. People, substances, bad habits, something to tamp down the pain of that was caused by adult decisions. And your boys are going to run to something to medicate it too. So either way, there's going to be stuff there. So just be the person that, you know, Judith talks about. You need to provide such a stable emotional platform for your kids that they can launch from that.
Yeah.
And they're not standing on something that's unstable.
Yes.
And trying to still navigate. All they got to navigate is kids.
The first step in that is being present.
Yeah.
So if you have the opportunity to be present, at all costs, be there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take it a step further. Presence is not enough. I see a lot of things online. Just be present. Just be present. Just be present. Look, there's different versions of being present.
Yes, there is.
There are entirely different versions of being present. I can be present and my children don't even know I'm in the house. But I can be present because I'm engaged with the activities that they enjoy doing. And it could be as simple as spending 20 minutes on our iPad with her playing a game.
Right.
It could be as simple as watching a TV show or YouTube channel that she likes for 20 minutes.
Right.
Or it could be as complicated as going outside and going on a scavenger hunt with. But presence varies in its degrees.
It does.
Because I can be present on my phone while she's in her bedroom. What am I accomplishing there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, men, be present, but choose your presence wisely.
Very good. Yeah.
Because you need to be the man that helps them recover, not the man that they need to recover from. Man, that part right there.
It's a body blow.
It is.
But it's a great way to frame it. And you're doing one of the two. So yeah, be the healer.
Yeah. And that is a perfect transition to our last point here, B. And that is this simple question that we're going to answer briefly, but we really want to leave them with. If you would die tomorrow, what would your kids say about you? What would your legacy be if you died tomorrow?
That is your legacy.
Yeah.
The story they would tell when you're not here anymore. And that came to us as we were doing the planning for the show. And it was like, ooh, I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they would be saying over the repast, you know.
And then what do you want them to say?
There it is. We got time.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you're breathing, you got time to build a legacy and a story you want.
So it's very important that if you made it to this part of the podcast, that you sit there and say, all right, what would they say if I died tomorrow? And now what do I want them to say? Are those things close?
Yes.
Or are they, are they galaxies apart?
Yeah. Yeah. And wherever they are, you can always take steps today to move that story as close to what you ultimately wanted. No dude wakes up at 20 and says, I want to have 6 kids and be known as a deadbeat. And only, one of my 6 kids comes to my funeral, and that's out of obligation because they just had to. And the other 5 were like, So build a story you want them to have.
Yeah. Leave a legacy through the way you live that's positive, powerful, and that your kids can say, yeah, my dad was this. And they can be proud to say it, because you don't want your children going around having to make excuses for your behavior and your actions.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
What does it say? Be the what? Live in a way that
your children don't have to make excuses for you.
Yo.
Like, is it any more simple than that?
That's it.
My dad would be here, but he's busy. Oh, my dad would work out, but he said he got a bad back. I know some of y'all got bad backs, but live in a way that your children are not required to make excuses for you because they're ashamed of the things you've done and who you are. Hey,
that's it. Build a positive legacy, guys.
That's it.
So covered a lot of ground. It's close to our hearts.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll revisit it again. It's all about legacy building. Everything we're talking about in terms of being a better baby dad is like, creating a different story than we started out with.
Absolutely, man.
All right. So until next time, I'm Kelly.
And I'm John.
Peace.